Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Wednesday, the Leading Change episode this week with Kevin Pedersen. Hi, Kevin. Welcome back.
Hey, let's go.
So, Kevin, on Wednesdays, we tackle the big, bad wolf of change. I mean, very often people are scared of change. They resist change. Change is kind of a topic all the time. Also because typically Scrum Masters are there to help teams change. We talked about yesterday how important it is to perhaps stand back and let them ask for help first. But there are other aspects, and change is not only at the team level, it can be organizational or individual level. So we want you to tell us one of those stories, Kevin, a story of a moment of change that you were involved with. And of course, to help us understand what were the tips, the tricks, the tools, the techniques you used back then that you still use today.
So I'd like to talk more of a organizational change for this level. And it's a company that there's a department that they pulled us in to help them think more agile and transform the whole department rather than just a specific team. And I think one of the important things to do when you're tasked with these things is to find out what does success look like. I think if you can define that up front, then at least you have kind of a goal to work towards. And often they'll say, well, we want quicker delivery or more delivery. And we can say, well, yeah, that's great. That's more of an output. But what are the outcomes you're looking for? We can obviously increase output. It's quite simple. You just make your work smaller and then you deliver more, right? That doesn't necessarily always affect the outcomes. So if we can find out what those outcomes are that they want, then that's a different conversation. So one of the outcomes for this particular department was there was a high churn rate of employees. So is there a way to kind of reduce that so we get to keep our good staff? And by talking about that, we realized that, well, why is there a high churn rate? And one of the things we noticed was that there was actually quite a low level of psychological safety. And I think psychological safety in any organization is extremely important, especially if you're going through an agile transformation where you want to start making work visible and things like that. You need to have psychological safety there. So one of the things we did to help introduce this was we set up what we called monthly agile chats, where once a month we would have an hour set aside for the whole department to come together and we would talk to them about topics that they were interested in. So the way we work this was similar to almost like a lean coffee style, where you come up with the topics up front, we dot voted on them, and then the next month we would, whichever topic was most popular, we would pull in a guest speaker to come and talk about that. Now, the idea about having a guest speaker was an important one, I think, because then it's not just me and my voice saying this is the way. What we're actually doing is inviting experts from all over the world to come and say, hey, this is how we do it at our place, or this has been my experience. And then we can kind of get those ideas. So it's not just one person's voice and saying, oh, well, that's just Kevin's idea, right? No, we can pull in people from Sweden, people from the Netherlands even, to come and speak on a specific topic that they are experts on. And I think by having these, what do you call it, paper bag sessions?
Yeah, brown bag lunches. Yes.
Yes. So those kind of things where we had these guest speakers in, what we could see is that people would latch onto these a lot better than if we would just do like a training session, for example. They would actually buy into these and find them much more enjoyable. And over time, you would slowly see changes were being made. So on the psychological safety one, for example, we pulled in Gitte Klickgaard from Denmark, or she actually lives in Sweden now. And she's got some great material around psychological safety. So, and after that talk, what we found is that the leadership were really starting to buy into this idea. And it's like, well, how can we now show the way with psychological safety so that our teams now also start to feel safe? So it started with leadership showing the way and like trying to prove to the teams, no, this is what we want to implement. And then the teams slowly building that trust up so that we could eventually build some psychological safety throughout the teams. And I think that was the catalyst for change in this organization. Once we had that kind of foundation, we then found that it was much easier to start getting continuous improvement.
Absolutely. I really like how you set this up, right? Like, just give us more delivery. wait a minute, but why do you want more delivery?
Yeah.
And then discovering that actually the problem was related to their inability to keep the right people in, the high churn of employees, and then kind of turning it around. And whatever the topic might be in this particular organization, maybe it was psychological safety. Then in other organizations, maybe it is the low level of expertise in terms of quality and development practices. In other organizations, it may be the lack of product owners that actually know how to work with software teams. I mean, we never know when we go in what is kind of the catalyst or the trigger for change. But I think that this story illustrates quite well how important it is to kind of dig deeper and find out what the goals are, what the reasons are for not reaching those goals, and then finding that kind of linchpin, that particular start of the change process.
Yeah, and I think whichever organization you go into, it's probably multiple of those things. There's probably many problems that they actually have. And I think it's important to only focus on one or two at a time. Don't try and change everything at once. Figure out where is the thing that's going to get the most traction, and maybe start with that and then worry about the rest later. So again, like what we teach with our teams, we should also do ourselves is limit your work in progress. Don't try and tackle everything at once.
Yeah, and from that perspective, to find the thing that is going to get the most traction, I think those brown bag sessions that you just were talking about are a great way to explore. Like we'll organize a few on different topics and see what people react to, because we know that people will react to the things that touch them, that speak to their needs and problems that they are facing.
100%.
That was a great story. Thank you for sharing that, Kevin.
Pleasure.
Leading change is one of the core skills we must acquire, but it is only one of the steps towards our success as Scrum Masters. Tomorrow, on Success Thursday, we will talk about how to define success for the Scrum Master role. We'll cover tips on how to measure your way to that position, and most importantly, how to develop that focus on continuous improvement that is as important for Scrum Masters as it is for teams. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.